Leanne, your thoughts on the session?
Positive for most of the day, as you say, snapping that 6-day decline that we saw, but we actually did lose momentum coming into late afternoon trade. That's basically exactly what we saw on US markets ahead of that FOMC meeting tonight. I think investors were a little bit cautious, so I think there was a concern that we would potentially see a similar performance today, and we certainly did see that in late afternoon trade. We were up about 0.75% at one stage, closing up 0.2% in the end. But as you mentioned, really driven higher by a rally or a rebound in those energy stocks. I think a lot of investors now starting to pick up some of these beaten down energy stocks off these very low levels, and certainly starting to see some value. We did actually see Cenex Energy, the best performer in that sector. We also saw the likes of Woodside, Oil Search and Santos all performing strongly. We also saw that materials sector performing strongly, and I do think the rebound that we saw in the energy sector was having positive ramifications, I think, for that materials sector, despite actually seeing some lower commodity prices coming through overnight as a result of that weaker Chinese manufacturing data that came through yesterday. We obviously saw the telcos and the financials also performing strongly, but again, we actually did see those financial stocks, some of the major banks, losing a little bit of momentum in the end. CBA was the only one to close in positive territory, and that's potentially ahead of the AGMs that we have out tomorrow from ANZ and NAB. So certainly it was quite a positive one, although, as I said, losing that momentum, but it was quite nice to see some green across screen.
Does it remain a key issue for markets though overnight?
James, I certainly think so. Certainly I think the overseas markets, the US and Europe, will be a main focus, and potentially that'll translate across onto our market tomorrow morning when we come online. Of course, as I mentioned, we saw a bit of a loss of momentum in the US overnight, and I think that was investors a bit cautious about this FOMC meeting, expectations that we might see some new commentary out. But I think, as Mike has mentioned, I think the expectation is we will see those interest rates on hold for some time, not expecting too much change in that commentary, and as you have pointed out, that labour market really being the key focus. So I do certainly think that the developments overnight tonight will be a key driver for our market tomorrow. Let's
talk locally, Leanne. 10 obviously having their AGM today. A lot of interest as to whether or not there'd be an update on the takeover process, the purchase acquisition process. None, really. A little bit disappointing. We saw their shares down 4.5%, and very interesting to see well off the 25 cents that they are reportedly, the board of 10, targeting.
James, that's exactly right. We actually saw the stock being sold off even ahead of that AGM. It was down even more than that, about 6.8% or so, and I think that was reflecting the fact that investors weren't expecting too much commentary from the AGM, and also not expecting that any sweetened bid will come through at that 25-cent level. We know that there has been speculation that Foxtel and Discovery has previously reduced that bid from 26 cents to 23 cents. As a result, we've seen that share price trading just below that, obviously closing today at about 21 cents. So no surprises, we've seen that share price low. They're obviously mulling over a lot of these proposals at the moment that came through on around the 3rd of December. Since that date, the stock's been down at about 12% or so, reflecting a lot of uncertainty. I think the fact that this proposal might not actually eventuate in the end as well is also adding to that uncertainty. There's obviously a number of hurdles really involved in any proposal in terms of media ownership laws, so they need approval from the ACCC and obviously approval from the board members as well. So I think there are a number of hurdles. It's obviously all going to come down to price and approval from the board. So it is a bit of a waiting game at this stage. Obviously, if any proposal does fall through, that's going to be even more disappointing for investors. Could continue to see that share price under pressure, and there's really going to be the question about where they are going to get this change in ratings from, the improvement in their balance sheet, in amongst trying to save on costs. So I think there certainly is a bit of concern going forward, but probably this waiting game is going to continue for a little while, and waiting to hear further from the board.
Very prominent. Leanne, Whitehaven Coal, huge move today. Talk me through it.
It certainly was, James. We saw it closing up about 4.4% in the end, which was quite nice to see a bit of relief in that share price. It has obviously been under quite a significant pressure since the start of the year, down about 37%, mostly in relation to obviously the challenging environment out there and those falling coal prices. But today we actually had some news out, an update on their Maules Creek mine. They have actually started the coal railing there 3 months ahead of schedule. So that was certainly very positive. We know this is one of Australia's largest coal mines under construction, so it certainly has been one very closely watched, but a number of positives there today. It's obviously been less than a year since construction actually first started there, so it's been a very quick turnaround time. They're actually going to be commercialising that around the 1st of July 2015, expecting about 2.5 million tonnes of coal to be produced over that period, and also expecting that potentially costs are going to come in below budget. So really all of that adding to that share price performance today, and I certainly think long term this looks very positive. Short term, I do expect that potentially those coal prices will continue to weigh. We know that there has obviously been excess supply issues in the market which have driven those thermal coal prices to multi-year lows, and that's obviously been weighing. I do expect in the short term that supply rationalisation will continue, but I think longer term the production profile coming out of Maules Creek is certainly looking positive. That's obviously going to have a positive impact on those earnings, and also longer term expecting that those thermal coal prices will eventually improve. So short term probably a bit of volatility expected, but certainly this update today looked very positive.
Yeah, good news.